What's up, guys, and welcome to a video that I honestly had no real intention of making. A couple of people have asked me to compare the Boogie, the Mark VII, with the JCM800 to see if the Mark VII could get somewhat close of an approximation of the sound or the vibe, or just kind of how close can the Mark VII get to sounding like the 800. And as you heard in the intro, there's not a huge difference. There is a difference, but it took a lot of tweaking on this thing because of how sensitive the controls on the Mark VII are. A lot of tweaking the controls, lots of loops going. I had to re-record numerous loops just because I was hearing them so often. I was just getting like that ear fatigue and just tired of hearing the loops. But anyways, I got to a point where I was satisfied with how the Boogie sounded, and it wasn't so much a can it just kind of cop the 800 sound. It was find a sound in the 800 that I really like, that I love, and then how close can the Boogie get to that? And that's kind of where I've landed on this. And during the intro, hitting 1 and 2, amp number 1 is the Boogie and amp number 2 is the 800. So depending on which one you like there in the intro, there you go. That's which amp was which on the switcher there. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to play a little bit more, but I'm also going to hit these amps with a boost. Now the boost is going into the front of this KHE amp switcher, which feeds the input of both amps. So turning on the boost effectively boosts each amp respectively to where the amp switcher control is set to. So let's go ahead and hear a little bit more. I'll probably drop tune down to C sharp, and we'll hear that. We've already kind of heard some of the standard stuff. The setup for today is basically just these two amps into the KHE amp switcher, and it's going into the aux box with the Marshall Vintage 30 cabinet. And yeah, so let's I'm gonna tune down here and we'll hear a little bit more. It's not gonna be a long video. You get the idea of what's going on here. So okay, I'm tuned down. Let's hear a little bit more unboosted, and I've also got the switch down here for the aux box, so I can kick on some delay if I want to, but I probably won't do a whole lot of that, maybe a little bit. Anyways, here we go. Okay, so as you can hear, when you turn the boost on with these amps, it definitely affects each circuit very differently. The Boogie traditionally does not really like overdrives in front of it unless you're in 2B mode, which is where I've got this amp set to. 2C mode and especially Mark IV mode, it really doesn't dig any sort of overdrive in front of it. It just really sounds best if you just turn the gain knob on the amp up. But Mark IIB mode plays with boosts a little bit better. So that's kind of how a boost can change the sound for these two amps when otherwise without the boost on. You do kind of have a sort of similar vibe going on between the two of them tone-wise. But yeah, when you turn on the boost, it shifts each amp very differently. Each amp reacts very differently. The Marshall, it stays a lot more cleaner and percussive with the top end and the mid-range, I feel like. And this one starts to squish a little bit in the mids and the lower mids. So it's not a huge difference, but it is different. And this is one of the few pedals that I felt like worked equally well with both of these amps during this comparison. I tried a few others, and the OCD, it just sat the, I guess it disrupted the vibe of the Boogie the least, I'll put it that way, so yeah. Okay, so here in the room, the main thing that I hear between these two amps is that the JCM800 has a much more immediate attack to the notes and is a little bit forceful, a more forceful attack to the notes. And with the Boogie, there's just a little bit extra sweetness and give and squish and compression, but it's still a nice big open sound. And both of these amps are equally loud. That's the one thing that I will give each of these amps credit for, is that I assumed that the Marshall would just run away from the Boogie and just be much, much louder, but that hasn't proven to be the reality of the situation. In the full 95 or the 90 watt mode on the Boogie, it is easily decibel wise hanging with the Marshall, but again, it does have a little extra squish and give to the note attacks, which in my opinion makes it feel a little bit better under the fingers, whereas with the Marshall you do need a drive pedal in front of it or a boost or something like that to get a little extra saturation for that more liquidy feel to the note attack. So again, both amps incredibly loud, very clear, clean, and articulate at very, very high volumes. So yeah, props to both of these amps for just being absolutely dominating forces here in the studio. One thing I do want to take care of is I will go ahead and get a picture of how I have the Mark VII EQ set, and I'll show you the EQ on the 800 as well. But I want to compare how the boosted 800 sounds to just the Boogie with a little bit more gain turned up, and kind of see where the sound ends up. I feel like this OCD is still going to just give the 800 a huge leg up in terms of the amount of saturation that it has. But I just want to see. I haven't done that yet. I've been focusing too much on just making the Boogie sound exactly like the Marshall without a boost, or with this. By the way, no hot mod. This is just stock Marshall. So let's go ahead and do that and kind of see what happens. Okay, so obviously there was more gain than I initially thought that this would have. I mean, even though I play 2B mode all the time on this amp, I guess given the context of what we were doing, it kind of took me by surprise a little bit. But yeah, OCD sucks a little bit of the goodness in the lower mid-range that I think the Marshall has. It sucks a little bit of that out in favor of really kind of giving it an absolutely fierce top end and way more saturation. Whereas with the Boogie, turning up the gain, I ended up, as you can see, I turned down the bass a little bit. Actually, it's all the way down. Just to kind of try to bring it more in line of what the 800 was doing in terms of the 800's low end. But yeah, a lot more low end available on tap in the Boogie. And again, there's still a generous amount of presence, both in terms of the EQ knob here and the slider over here that we can introduce as well. So still absolutely stunning how flexible this amp is. Yes, it's expensive, but as you've heard in several videos now, it's not going to sound exactly like an 800. It didn't sound exactly like the Plexi. It's not going to sound exactly like amp C, D, E, F, whatever, but it's going to do a really pretty admirable job of getting the vibe right. And I think that for a lot of players, having one amplifier that can sort of cover that much territory, it really does put into perspective of what a great value this amp really is, in my opinion. I mean, it's hard to say that a $4,000 amp is a good value, but when you consider how many sounds it has, the flexibility, again, the built-in impulse response loader, the load box so you can run it without a cabinet on stage, MIDI control, 3 channels, there's a lot of amp here for the money. And as iconic and incredible as the 800 is, I still gravitate a little bit more towards something like this, sounding like this, rather than just this. And if you're on the complete opposite side of the camp as me in that viewpoint, I completely understand. I love my Nitro and Jubilee to death, and I think that the 800 is an absolutely legendary amp for a very good reason, like I said in my review, but it kind of has one sound. It does the sound really, really well, and no other amp on the planet can do that sound as well as the 800 can. But getting close enough with this and having all the extra features, for me personally, that's where I would rather put my money than in something like this. Okay, well that is going to wrap up this video comparison of the Mark VII and the JCM800, and tomorrow the 800 goes back to the guys at Zounds. I've had an absolutely awesome time getting to spend a lot of time with this amp and really get to know it and just use it in so many different ways, taking it on stage. It's been a very, very fun amplifier to have here in the studio and on stage. So again, big thanks to the guys at Zounds for letting me borrow this for a little while. If you would like to check out either of these amps or this amazing Lizzy Hale Explorer, the OCD, whatever, the aux box, I will have affiliate links to all of that stuff down in the video description, and you can use those links to buy literally anything on Zounds' website, and when you do, I get a small commission. It really helps out the channel. I don't get paid for these reviews, so those affiliate purchases, they really do help my channel. And if you don't want to buy anything, that's cool. If you're not subscribed though, I know there's a lot of you guys watching. If you're not subscribed, man, a sub will really help my channel grow. Get these videos out there to more people in that algorithm. I know it's a vicious beast, and subbing and hitting like and all that crap down there, it really does help my channel kind of get more, it gets in front of more eyes, and I think that's really helping me deliver more content and better content for you guys. So anyways, thanks for hanging out with me, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care. Bye.